Okay, it's 7:30, Mr. Secretary. Can we proceed with the meeting at this point?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone, on this incredibly windy day and evening. It's good to see you. I'd like to call to order the City of Camarillo Planning Commission, a regular hearing on this January 19th, 2021. May we have a roll call, please, Mr. Secretary?
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Edsel?
Here.
Commissioner Espinosa?
Here.
Commissioner Vandermeulen?
Here.
Vice Chairman Talmadge?
Here.
And Chairman Murphy?
Here.
Thank you. All present.
All present. And it's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. And for that, can we have Commissioner Espinosa please lead us?
Yes, please put your hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for that. We're now on item 4, which is to approve the minutes from our most recent meeting, a regular meeting that was held December 1st, 2020. Do we have any commissioner comments about those minutes?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved by Commissioner Espinosa, seconded by Commissioner Vandermeulen. Let's go ahead and vote. Commissioner Edsel?
Here, or yes.
Commissioner Vandermeulen?
Yes.
Commissioner Espinosa?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So that carries 5-0. Thank you. We're on to the public comments, and this is the time when any attendee may come forward and talk about any item that is not on our agenda this evening. And I am going to check to see if we have any of our attendees that are raising their hands. I don't see any. Could I get a confirmation from staff on that?
That's correct, Chair Murphy. There are no requested comments.
All right, thank you. Then we'll go ahead and close the public comment. We're on to item 6, which is the consent agenda. We have 2 items, the 2021 Planning Commission meeting schedule, and item B is the Planning Commission bylaws and rules of order. I understand that we can vote on both of these as a consent agenda, but first, do we have any comments, questions from the commissioners on either of these 2 items?
Chairman Murphy,
Yes.
I would like to add that at 6:38, staff sent a red folder email to the Planning Commission. Red foldering item 6B, page 11. It's the resolution for the bylaws.
Okay.
So just please note that the consent calendar approval will include the revised resolution.
Okay, so noted. The most recent revised resolution that was sent, I think you said at 6:38 this evening. Commissioner, Vice Chair Talmadge, you had a comment.
Yes, a couple of questions. On first off, on the Planning Commission schedule, I don't see any mention of the California League of Cities planning workshop, or academy as they call it, nor the League of Cities conference for 2021. And their website lists that they are having something, but it's unclear to me, are we to attend or not? Or is that information that will come sometime later?
So I will share with you that it's not currently in the budget for the planning commissioners to attend. As a result of the adopted budget on July 1st, the training and seminars and the conference budget was thinned down to try to preserve general fund as a result of the issues facing the city with COVID-19 and reduced revenues. So we didn't include those in the calendar. if something changes and we do have budget for that, we would definitely want to try to have all the commissioners attend as always if we could. But for now, that's been kind of put on hold, as has staff's training.
When will the city council be taking up revisions to the budget? Because we're at mid-year right now.
Yes, that's correct. Well, we don't have any proposed mid-year budget adjustments. And then the next budget would be July 1st of 2021.
So you're saying there isn't anything that's going to happen before July 1st?
Not as far as I'm concerned right now, based on the direction from the city manager and the council with the adopted budget.
Mm-hmm.
But then if that changed budget-wise in July and COVID-wise, there might, and if they do have something in the fall, that might be allowed.
Yes, to be determined.
Okay.
And of course, I mean, I know it's not customary, but I know from time to time I've paid for training out of my pocket, but I don't expect planning commissioners to do that. But you always could choose to do that if that was something that you desired to participate in. We would support that.
And do they know where they're going to have it virtual this year, or were they planning for an in-person conference?
As far as we all know right now, it's all virtual.
Yeah, it's too bad at the budget, because that probably would have been a lot less expensive for the city, because there's no lodging or anything. So
I know, I understand. Yeah, it's a disappointment for all of us. I mean, of course, we want you guys to be able to attend those seminars and get the training, because it helps us do our job as best as we can.
all right. Thank you.
Excuse me. Do we have any other questions from the commissioners on the two items?
So my question is just on all these meetings at 6:30, then the architectural review would be just be the same. It would be at 6 o'clock, be a half hour sooner.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just to be clear, if we motion to approve the consent items, we're incorporating the revision, right, to the that was recently. Okay, yes. That's part of the motion. Right. Okay.
So I'll make that motion if that's appropriate at this time. Then we adopt the calendar and adopt the resolution changing the amending our planning commission bylaws to be consistent with that.
I'll second the motion to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, so moved by Commissioner Etzel, seconded by Vice Chair. These are for both items on the agenda. And let's go ahead and vote. Commissioner Espinosa?
Yes.
Vice Chair Talmadge?
Yes.
Commissioner Vandermeulen?
Yes.
Commissioner Etzel?
Yes.
Approved 5-0. Thank you. That moves us to item 7 on this evening's agenda, public hearing, IPD 390M1, Trojan Fit Storage Facility. May we have a staff report on this, please?
Thank you, Commissioner Murphy, members of the Planning Commission. This IPD 390 is a modification to a previously approved industrial plan development permit, and the applicant is for Trojan Storage. The location as seen here on the map is at the northeast corner of Camino Carrillo and Camino Ruiz. The request from Trojan Storage is to modify the existing industrial plan development permit to construct a 364,000 square foot self-storage facility comprised of 3 buildings, including an office and a caretaker's apartment. Under the Municipal Code Section 196802C, the Planning Commission is the decision maker for the requested modification to the industrial plan development permit. As you can see here in the site plan, the layout of the 3 buildings. Building A is along the south side of the property facing Camino Carrillo. Building B is on the west side of the property, and Building C is in the center of the property. There's also parking on the west side, and the areas that are hashed on this site plan are areas designated to be available for RV storage. The site will also feature a precast 6-foot high solid block wall around the entire property, including opaque gates at the vehicle entry points to screen the RV storage from view. Shown here is the elevations for building A along the south side of the property. The elevation on top is the south facing elevation that you would see from Camino Carrillo. It includes stone veneer, Spanish S-tile roofs, additional architectural detailing. Those green pockets are proposed green screens. And that 2-story portion on the left side of that elevation is the office on the ground floor and the caretaker's apartment on the second floor. This area will also incorporate an element of public art, which will be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission at a separate date. That approval will be required to be made by the Planning Commission prior to the issuance of building permits, and the art will need to be installed prior to a certificate of occupancy being released for the project, which is a condition of approval. And then at the bottom, you can see an elevation of the manager's carport, which will cover 2 parking spaces and have the same S-tile roof on top. The elevation here for building B, the one on top, is facing west. That is facing the other building that's existing on Camino Carrillo in the parking lot. The elevation on bottom facing east is the internal elevation, and then you can see the very bottom, the north and south elevations, with the south facing Camino Carrillo. Here are the elevations for building C in the middle. It is a 3-story building. It's 35 feet in height. It has varying roof elements and different massing around the entire building. It incorporates the same materials with the stone veneer, stucco finishes, S-tile on the roof, and additional detailing throughout. The proposed facility is located within the heritage zone. So the project was given additional scrutiny for design and materials to be consistent with the heritage zone design guidelines. The project features the stone veneer, the concrete S-tile roof, and the additional detailing, as mentioned before, to be compatible with the heritage zone design guidelines. The elevation on the south of this rendering is the area where public art is anticipated to go, most likely in the middle of that building A on the south elevation. However, the final location and proposal for public art will be reviewed by the Planning Commission at a later date. As you can see here, they have proposed a conceptual landscape plan. The area along the south of the property along Camino Carrillo will be lined with new trees and ground cover. Along the east side of the property will be lined with trees. There will be trees throughout the interior of the parking lot, and fewer trees along the north side due to a utility easement, and there will be ground cover throughout. The landscaping plan will also be reviewed after entitlements are issued by the planning department. This site is a modification to an existing industrial plan development permit. That initial IPD 390 was reviewed and a mitigated negative declaration was adopted for the project site back in 2011. The proposed project is a substantial change to the original approval, and an addendum was prepared to the mitigated negative declaration to determine if this new scope of project would have additional impacts not evaluated under the initial MND. After evaluation, the proposed project was found to not contain any additional environmental impacts that were not adequately evaluated and mitigated through the MND from adopted in 2011. And therefore, the proposed development does not have any additional environmental review necessary, and the original mitigation monitoring and reporting program is being applied to this project as a condition of approval to mitigate the potential environmental impacts. Staff is recommending approval of the modification to the IPD 390 subject to the conditions of approval, and the Planning Commission action is final unless it is appealed within 10 days of the action. This concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Mr. Nevy. That was a very nice presentation. Do we have any commissioner comments, questions for staff on this application? Commissioner Espinosa?
I have one question regarding the mitigated negative declaration. That was adopted some time ago, right? Almost 10 years ago.
That's correct. It was adopted in September of 2011.
And I don't see that the project really that's proposed here, even with the increase in building size, as far as the footprint and everything's concerned, it seems pretty similar, or at least not much different than what originally was proposed there when it was reviewed. The one question I had was regarding anything in the CEQA guidelines that are there today that weren't there 10 years ago. Like, for example, wildfire risk. That's not part of the addendum. It probably wasn't looked at back then, but was it looked at now? Because I don't note that it's in the addendum at all.
Right. The wildfire and the newer sections of the CEQA guidelines were not evaluated under the MND. However, check the attendees. Our environmental consultant, Michael Brown, is attending via phone, and I think he would be a little bit better versed in being able to answer that question for us. So if I can get some assistance in getting Michael unmuted.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, John. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. And yes, Commissioner Espinosa, the purpose of the addendum was to compare the impacts of the project against the impacts of the approved land use for the site. Because if a project was coming before you that was, the use that was previously evaluated, it would not be subject to any updated CEQA analysis. So this addendum did not look at changes to the CEQA guidelines and new thresholds that had maybe been looked at. That new projects would be subject to. It was to compare the impacts of the proposed project against those of the approved project as evaluated in the adopted MND. Now, that being said, just to allay your concerns, there are basically 3 issues that have been added to the CEQA guidelines since that time. These 3 are energy, wildfire, and tribal cultural resources. With regards to energy, just to provide information to you, with regards to energy, for example, although this project has greater building square footage, the evaluated project was actually a office building that's allowed under the existing zoning and general planned land use designations for the site. So the approved use, being an office building, would actually use more energy through its lifetime than a storage facility would, which is, there's very little energy involved throughout those buildings. And, lights only come on, for example, when you walk in the hallway there. All of the units that are accessed from the outside do not have lights. The storage units themselves, even inside, generally do not have lights. They're only in the hallways. You would have the energy within the office. You would have the energy within the residence component of it. But overall, this project would actually, if we were to calculate for both, this one would use less energy than an office would. So in that case, we could say that the potential impacts of this project would be less than those of the approved use. With regards to wildfire, both of, this project site is not within the high or adjacent to the high fire hazard area that surrounds the city of Camarillo. So there's no change in impact associated with this project versus the approved project. And also with regards to tribal cultural resources, the potential for anything to be discovered at the site is the same for either project. And so the mitigation that was adopted is still applicable to this use. I hope that addresses your concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the energy, and it's probably the same case with water usage and traffic, even as far as the new project versus the one proposed originally. But in terms of wildfire, it doesn't take into account, because it may not be in the high fire risk zone, but in terms of its proximity to the vegetation, hillside, which in winds like today, you can imagine that it's going to be an exposure. So it's going to be impacted. So I just was wondering whether there would need to be any sort of review in that regard, or any mention of it in the addendum, if any sort of mitigation had to be considered or not. But you're saying it doesn't, because you're comparing it to the original existing and not what a new development today might require. Is that right?
Yes, I understand your concern there, and this is a situation where no matter the use, even the approved use, for example, if it were to be developed right now, it is still subject to review by not only the city building department, but also the fire. Ventura County Fire Department would also be reviewing it for access and materials. So when it comes to planning for these uses, the analysis of the buildings that are being proposed would occur at the same time, no matter what, and both buildings would be subject to the current, fire protection standards that are in place at this present time. Now, obviously, this property here is not adjacent to the high fire hazard area, and yes, it could be subject to to winds, just like we're doing right now. And in that case, that's where the building materials review comes into place. And with these sorts of buildings here, you're talking about tile roofs, and especially, with the whole Mission Oaks Business Park requirements that are in place here. These buildings are sort of, as designed, are not high fire hazard. They don't include high fire hazard materials in them, no matter what the use is. Whether it be the approved use or this use.
All right. Well, thanks for addressing that. I appreciate that.
May I add one more question onto the energy part of that? One of the questions that I had to ask later was, are these going to be air conditioned? And then when you said no light, the only time I rented a storage unit, there was a light in the storage unit and they were air conditioned. So is this space going to be non-air conditioned and totally no lights in the unit?
I believe that's a better question that we could give to the applicant. My understanding is that there will be some air conditioned units in this project, but the applicant can speak to that a little bit better. And if I could briefly address Commissioner Espinosa's concern, the project was also reviewed by Ventura County Fire and went through a few rounds of design to ensure that it met the fire access requirements. so that ladder apparatus would be able to reach all portions of the three-story building in the middle. So it has been reviewed extensively by Ventura County Fire to ensure that they would be able to approach the building successfully if there was a fire on that one. So with that, I think I'll hand it back over to the applicant who can speak to the air conditioning question.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Brett Henry. I'm the owner and developer for Trojan Storage. Thank you all for your time. I'm excited to be here. So we do have some conditioning on the third level of the main building. It's not conditioned like you would find in an office space. We're really there to keep the heat to a certain level and the cool to a certain level. So typically that's in the summers, not letting the building getting above 79, 80 degrees. In the winter, not letting it fall below, say, 62, 63 degrees. Some of the bigger units do have an individual light, but every light is on a motion sensor. So our motion sensor systems effectively, as it was being explained, as you walk down a hall, the lights will start to kind of pop on as you go on the hall. But after about 5 minutes of no motion, they dim to half capacity. And then after 15 minutes, they go off. So some of the larger units, and we put them at about 10 by 15 and larger, they do get one light, but the same concept. The door has to go open, and then you go in and the light goes on, and then the light goes off. And so we really work hard, and especially with having every fixture having its own motion sensor to make sure that the building is not just wasting electricity.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Do we have any other questions for either staff or the applicant from the commissioners? Commissioner Edsel, please.
I have a question for the staff. I was wondering if John could show, we talked about it in the Architectural Review Committee, but for the whole group, kind of show what kind of view of this building is going to be as you come down the Conejo Grade, which side of the building and what are you going to see?
Let me backtrack a little bit here. So this bottom rendering right here is probably the best view that you're going to get from coming down the Conejo Grade. You will be much higher and it'll be more off to the east. So you'll be more up kind of towards the point of this picture looking down on the project. So you'll be seeing this south elevation where the public art's going to be located. And you're going to be seeing the south and east elevations of the building C in the middle of the project. Now you will see that for a short amount of time as you come down the grade, if you can see on this site plan here. Once you get down past the wash, you're going to be more in line with the building, and you're not going to see building C in the middle as much. You might see a bit of the roof line coming down, but the hillside here is really going to block a lot of that view as you come down the grade. And I'd like to remind the Planning Commission that the remainder of Camino Carrillo, which is being extended currently, has other industrial plan development permits that have been approved already and are still active. So eventually these other lots to the south and to the east will be developed, providing additional screening to the facility. And one more thing to point out on the conceptual landscape plan, there are a row of trees being proposed on the south side and along the east side of the property to provide additional screening. So the landscaping, in addition to the heritage design and the additional buildings that will eventually be built on the adjacent lots, will provide a fair amount of screening to the proposed project from the Conejo Grade.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other? Vice Chair Talmadge, please.
Unmute. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I have a couple of questions that I didn't really hear or see in the staff report. There's reference to various easements that are granted across the property, and I'm wondering if those have already been done, or are they going to happen at certificate of occupancy, or when does that happen? Specifically, there was one to the Camarosa Water District for present and future lines to go through that connect to other properties. Are those easements in place or not?
It's my understanding that those easements are already in place. I believe the applicant might be able to speak to that, or possibly Ms. Tucker might be able to speak to that a little bit more clearly. But if you see, this is on the conceptual landscape plan. An easement is shown along the north side of the property that runs in between where the parking is and the property line. And then an additional easement you can kind of see, I'm not sure if you can tell, but there's a dotted line right along the cursor here, showing another easement that runs along the west side of the property.
Yeah, I'm aware of about where they were, but I just was wondering whether that easement has been recorded or not. I know the project was proposed 10 years ago, and I didn't know if any of that easement work had been done yet or not.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Tally. They did do some of the easement work with the final map that was recently recorded. So on the east side of the property are the Camarosa easements, and this project will be extending a 12-inch line on the east side of the building.
Okay, but that work is actually going to be done by Camarosa or someone else, not this applicant.
I believe Camarosa is looking for the applicant to extend what's currently stubbed out from the street, and they would connect it up along the east side to the north side of the property, just there.
Okay, all right. Okay, next question had to do with the vacation or vacating the Camino Carrillo street. It shows that it ends in a cul-de-sac. That cul-de-sac, of course, isn't built right now. And your easternmost entrance to the project comes right off of that cul-de-sac. Does this project require the construction of that cul-de-sac, or is it a participation with other property owners? Because there's 3 other properties that meet this one at that corner. I'm curious, how much of the road will be completed by this project, or does everything have to wait until all 4 projects build?
With the map that I referenced where the easements were done, that map also had a construction drawings. So currently they are out there doing the work on the cul-de-sac. They've done the grading, utilities where the cul-de-sac will be. On the map, the city did vacate portions of the old right away for the cul-de-sac. So currently the correct cul-de-sac has been recorded. It's recorded, and they're now constructing the cul-de-sac. So they're also going to be putting utilities and the stubs for each of these 4 parcels. So when this project comes in, they will just be connecting to the stub out of water lines and sewer lines.
Got it. Yeah, I have seen that there's been grading work out there. I went out and kicked some dirt clods and things like that. So, but I was just curious how much this project will be paving that cul-de-sac and paving the extension of the road.
They won't be paving the road. It will already be paved. The most they'll be doing in the right of way is the sidewalk. I believe they show a sidewalk that will connect out to the street.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. Just a off the wall question. Why is there so much on-site parking for storage units? I understand if it was an office building, you have a lot of people in and out. Why is there so much parking required for this?
In our municipal code, there's various different uses and parking requirements. In the code, it does specifically reference mini storage, and the parking ratio is listed at 1 parking space per 500 square feet of storage space. So based on the 116,000 plus square feet of storage space, they were required to provide sufficient parking at that 1 to 500 spaces ratio. The required parking ended up being 234 parking spaces, and they are going to be providing 237 parking spaces on site. But the requirement is just what our code calls for, it being a 1 to 500, and that's typical of other light industrial uses in the city.
So I understand.
The mini warehouses,
I understand, right? Light industrial uses, but in this case, more often than not, the place is empty. The buildings are full of stuff, and every now and then someone goes to look at their stuff, and they do something with it. I'm just curious. Maybe it's a question for another forum at another time, but it just seems like there's way too many parking places in what are really needed for what we're really talking about doing. I would understand a different kind of industrial use, like an office or something, requiring a lot of parking, but I just don't understand self-storage facilities, that's all. So, okay. Where are the elevators that serve Building A? I see some blocks right near the main entrance and then one at the opposite side of the building, but they're not designated as an elevator. Are those the elevators for people to get things up and down? Yeah, see the little X right near the, there's like 5 parking places at an indent in the building, and there's an X there and there's an X just opposite at the top.
Correct.
Are those elevators?
Yes. Shown here on Building C, I actually have a floor plan of
it doesn't really
Building
call
C.
out that that's an elevator. I assumed it was, but I just want to make sure.
Correct. You can see right here where the cursor is circling on the first floor.
Got it. I see it.
On the other end, those are the elevators servicing the 3 stories. But
now, is that adjacent to a stairwell?
There are stairs here in the bottom corner and the top right corner.
Okay, so the stairs aren't next to the elevators.
No, they're in the opposite corners.
Okay, all right, okay. That's all I had for now. Thank you.
Any further questions for staff? Commissioner Vandermeulen, if you unmute and.
My questions, I think, are more for the applicant. Is that okay?
Yes, but I have a question for staff, and then we'll get into the public comments. Thank you. Public testimony.
Sure.
So my question, John, and this may shed a little bit of light on what Vice Chair Talmadge was talking about in terms of the parking. It does seem like a lot of parking spaces for this use. However, many of those spaces are a combined RV and parking. Now, RVs will take up obviously a lot more space than a standard lot, but all of the spaces on the striping plan, which I think is represented on the grading plan, they're all standard spaces. So the fact that there's an allowance for RV parking in combination with regular parking here, there you can see that there would be a need for just general parking area, because I had that same question about, it seemed like an awful lot of spaces for the use. But if you look at the long-term parking, that sounds more sensible to me. I don't know. It's not really a question, but just trying to confirm my my dim understanding of it.
Right, and that's why there's a solid block wall going all the way around the property, and the areas that it's identified to have RV storage is set back away from Camino Carrillo, so you don't have an RV or other vehicle parked in that area that's going to be seen over the wall. So it creates that line of sight and provides screening from the right of way.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
I just wanted to take a moment to thank you very much, Chairman Murphy, because I think that's correct that you highlighted the fact that we're using opportunity for RV storage, which is much needed in the city. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Certainly. All right, so no further questions from commissioners. Let's go ahead and open the public testimony for this. We do have a applicant representative, Mr. Henry. Thank you for coming along. Would you like to talk a little bit about the project or be available for any further questions from the commissioners?
You know, I'll keep my comments pretty short. This will be the nicest storage facility that's been built around. This is all my company does. We've been building up and down from Portland down to San Diego and the Bay Area and Los Angeles, and actually kind of in your neighbor Calabasas. And so we take a lot of pride in it. We put in a lot of security. We make sure they're energy efficient. They're set up for the residents of Camarillo. And we've been working on this project actually for a few years with your city. And we're really excited to be here. We're going to be a big benefit, and you can be sure that it'll be well maintained. Take all the security and service and all the things very seriously, and we're thrilled to finally be here. So happy to answer any questions about what we do and storage from any of you.
Right, thank you. Do we have any commissioner questions for the applicant?
Go ahead, Beverly.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Vandermeulen.
Thank you. I want to go back to the parking for the RV parking. It allows for a lot of spaces that are marked out for RVs, but they're very small spaces for RVs. We've just been reviewing our RV lot here, and our sizes for our RV lots, our spaces run anywhere from 20 feet long to 40 feet long, and 10 feet wide to 16 feet wide. Yeah. And these spaces, if I'm measuring them correctly, are about 20 by 9.5. And they're all the same size. So are they only going to be parking small RVs, or is there any allowance anywhere on the lot for larger RVs?
So again, I've had all kinds of storage properties. We have one down in Oxnard that actually has kind of more proper sizes for RVs, 12 feet wide by 30 feet, 35 feet, and 40 feet in different dimensions. We were really stuck with your code, to be totally honest. Your code required parking spaces specifically. And so the one commissioner's comment, vice chairman's comment about how much parking there was, this is very unusual. We're building 12 storage facilities currently right now, and most of them have 8 or 9 or 10 parking spaces in totality, 20 tops. And so unfortunately, the constraint of both the parking and the spaces really being these sizes is what led to it. Our preference would probably be that we stripe off these 237 spaces, but then maybe we get a little bit more flexibility to widen some or lengthen others, and give ourselves a little bit more kind of diversity of what we could store for customers, because these will store cars, trailers, kind of the ones you pull behind. But if someone has a 30-foot RV, it's just not going to work. And so it was really a constraint of code. And so the nice thing about parking is it's really just striped, right? And so with us having all 237 spaces, if I don't know if it's possible, but if we could get a little bit more flexibility that, we leave the parking spaces there, but maybe we're allowed to restripe them, knowing that, the city could always tell us if the building was ever gone to a different use and this became an office building and needed all these parking spaces, you could very quickly stripe it back. And so if we got that flexibility from you, we would put a much, much more diverse set of parking out there to handle the demand. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of demand for RVs.
Yeah.
They're hard to park, they're hard to find. And everybody constantly builds the space into more storage whenever they can, because it's more profitable. And so if it's possible and we can do that, we'd love to make that change.
Yep. That was my concern in particular, because looking at the lot for the storage, at the adjacent storage area, I mean, that's a lot of empty space that's not being used with all the spaces that are required. So if there's any way, that could be changed at some point, it would be beneficial, because there are a lot of people that need places for the larger units. And the size of the spaces, even when if they measure out, if they're not even quite 10 feet wide, that's really limiting as to what you can put in there.
So I want to share that flexibility is actually built into this process, and we can work with the applicant after the project is approved to do a restriping with the zoning clearance, but we still need to make sure that we do meet our code requirements overall, and we can consider the accommodation of updated sizes for RVs. So that's kind of built into our procedure here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's much more encouraging.
For us too.
Let me see here. That was still on. Coming in with this large of a storage facility, have you studied the need for that versus vacancy of other storage units in Camarillo?
Yeah, so we do. We actually, technology is so great that between Google Maps and data that we have, we're really able to measure relatively the exact square footage of usable space that exists in Camarillo, and typically storage facilities pull within a 5-mile radius. We'll pull a little bit more because there's just such a lack of supply of self-storage facilities in the general area. And actually Camarillo, the parking constraints is really another barrier to entry. We just happen to have this, very large acreage with lots of easements running through it where we couldn't put buildings anywhere. So we were able to really draw on that flexibility. But you've got about half the square foot in your city that we would kind of call equilibrium. So normally, without getting too technical, we would say about 8 square feet per person in a city is equilibrium. Supply and demand is right where it should be. You guys are at about 5 square feet per person. So Los Angeles is, about 3.5, and then places like Sacramento have 12, and they're oversupplied. And so you've got a lot of demand. It's not being met, which means people are driving farther and farther, probably up to Ventura, in places where storage is a little bit easier to develop. And so honestly, I would guess that we fill up this storage building in less than 12 months. Normally it takes 24 to 36 months, but our guess is it's going to take 12.
Okay, thank you. On fire sprinklers, when I was looking through some of the regulations and requirements, are the storage units going to have fire sprinklers within them?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So they'll be in the hallway, and then they kind of split in T into every unit. And I'm not an engineer, but every unit will have one, and then the bigger units have multiple.
Okay, because that wasn't quite clear to me when I was reading through all the requirements.
We have lots of sprinklers. And we need to, because of all the divising walls and different things. It's not like a warehouse that's 20 feet up and sprinkles down. So it's there for you. Or for your fire, more importantly.
It makes me feel better.
Good.
Yeah, the only other thing I was really kind of surprised at was a year or two ago, we heard on some of these lots they were going to put in, they had the need for smaller storage industrial buildings and uses. So I was surprised to see a larger unit coming in. So
your land's expensive.
I was thinking we would be getting more smaller industrial buildings rather than a big storage unit, but as long as there's a need for it, that will work.
There's definitely a need.
Yeah, because we went from 8 parcels and down to 4 parcels.
Right.
So, are you putting in, I didn't see anything on the plans, and there was a notice as far as what you can do with water and water that you can't power wash and stuff. So does that mean like if you do have RVs, there's not going to be like a washing station or anything for them, only strictly storage?
Yeah, so we limit that for everybody. One of the challenges you want is it really is dead storage. It's designed for kind of 2 things. The residential customer is about 80% of our business. We want them to be able to come, feel safe, feel good. And then, the other 15 or 20% are your, 1 and 2 person companies, your landscapers, your contractors, store a little extra equipment because their home's really their office. So for us, we just can't have people fixing cars and washing cars and doing all that type of stuff. So it's it's not only forbidden in the lease, but our site manager, who will live on and has worked for me for 8 or 9 years, he'll move out from the San Fernando Valley out to here with his family. They'll make sure that stuff doesn't happen. We just can't.
Okay. And I think that's pretty much all the questions I had on the facility. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions for the applicant? Commissioner Espinosa.
Yeah, I wanted to find out if normally as a storage facility, it's not normally regarded, especially when they're doing the environmental reviews and so forth, that any sort of hazards in terms of operation, because there's not, and there's no processes going on. But as far as storage is concerned, do you have restrictions of any kind, or do they vary by jurisdiction as far as what people can bring to store?
Yeah, so we have to, right? Because small challenges, you know, we don't let people have food come in because food brings rats and bugs and different stuff like that and gets into people's stuff. So our lease is really, really specific. It doesn't allow any hazardous materials. It doesn't allow the storage of things, because anyone who's going to store that kind of stuff eventually is going to dump it on me, and then we're going to have to go deal with it. It really is for household goods, you know, business equipment, things that are valuable to someone in using them, but not, you know, works of art. So we exclude people from doing sentimental things, you know, artwork, things like that, because it's not where it belongs. But yes, we forbid that. And then, like, even working in the unit, someone could use it to store their office equipment or their construction equipment, but they couldn't go in and fix their machines at our storage facility. So the lease is month to month, which gives us the flexibility that if a tenant is not following our rules, we can move on. And then we'll put about 50 high definition cameras in, as well as we actually have an automated door hasp that no one else really uses yet. So when someone puts in their gate code, it actually disarms their hasp and lets them actually open their unit. So we know how many times the door goes up and down. We know if someone's there after hours and is not allowed to. We really, you know, with 600-700 units, you really need to control it. And so, yeah, we're really, really specific. It's for your residents.
Okay, good. Yeah. And then, so your living person too will be looking, see if anybody's willing in 55-gallon drums and all that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Vice Chair Talmadge, did you have a question?
I'm not sure if it's a question or comment, and maybe not specifically to the applicant, but I wanted to circle back to the question about the parking and providing the opportunity for more recreational vehicle storage. Is there a way in our approval of this project that we can have the applicant take a look at the parking so that we could see a plan that shows some additional parking for RVs instead of just a whole bunch of car spots that would never be used? Perhaps Director Vaca can provide some insight in that regard. Joe, are you there?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Vice Chairman Talmadge. And we will be working with the applicant after based on the need and demand. We anticipate there'll be a need and a demand for RV storage, but we don't know exactly what the costs are for that storage. And of course, people are only going to be utilizing services that they can afford. So that's something that we will be working with post-construction typically. As we see a demand come online, we already delineated areas on the site plan that will accommodate the RVs. So it's something that we'll be working for compliance with our parking ordinance and allowing RV storage based on demand in the future.
Okay. Is there anything we need to do in terms of action minutes from this meeting to encourage additional parking for recreational vehicles? Because as you're well aware, the city just rescinded its rules for on-street RV parking. And so now people are forced to move their RVs to someplace else. Well, the someplace else is something like this. So
that's correct. So we did already delineate that on the site plan. So it's already in the plans that will be stamped approved, assuming this project is approved this evening.
But I guess I'm not understanding, how are we going to look at the question of providing additional RV parking?
So the areas that are hashed, John, if you want to jump in here and maybe bring up the site plan and show that the areas that are already hashed will accommodate RV parking of various sizes.
Okay. Well, I see the ones across the top and then the two things in the middle, but the things in the middle are all basically car spaces, unless you park an RV longitudinally, 90 degrees to the striping. I don't know how you'd get a large RV in there.
We may have the ability to adjust those diamond planners and have the RVs pull through. So John, can you kind of show the areas where we have analyzed this already?
Right, so the hashed areas that are identified for RVs are these northern parking spaces here along the east property line and these two aisles.
Right.
You can see the cursor.
And if I could, sorry.
What we're saying is that we have the area delineated for RV parking. We don't understand completely at this point what the total demand will be.
Okay.
And we have the flexibility to work with the applicant, property owner, developer as the need comes online in the areas that are already delineated to adjust the striping to accommodate RVs.
Okay. In the situation of the spaces on the against the eastern boundary, again, you just have pull-in parking. Unless you straddle and go 90 degrees to the striped lines, you're not going to put anything of any size in. It's just the size of a vehicle.
Or it could be a boat or a trailer. Those are also RVs that we accommodate in our RV storage facilities.
Okay.
And I think the director said it, and I just want to highlight it. One of the challenges of flexibility will be the planters in the middle of those two islands, kind of in the middle. Because I agree, you're not going to have pull straight in 90-degree spaces. We're always going to angle them with kind of a one-way, so people can kind of pull into a space and then back out of it. And so I don't know if there's another way to maybe have some flexibility or look at that specific green spots right there. But because they're 90 degrees, those planters may kind of get in our way just in those two areas to the right or the east of building C.
Yeah.
Yes, we've already considered that, so we understand there may need to be some flexibility in working on that in the future.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we maintain that flexibility because I don't know if you've ever backed a boat that's even a 17-foot boat's about a 21 to 22-foot trailer, and you only have a very narrow driveway to get to it. And believe me, it's difficult. So
yeah, I've done that with the boat and a trailer. I get it. I understand. So we want to make sure that we can provide for that.
Okay. I just want to make sure we maintain the flexibility because I think this satisfies a need, but that the need it's not just boxes that people put things in. There are other things that I think we need to be sensitive to and need to respond to that requirement. So as long as we stay open to that, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Yes, and John, I believe that we've already analyzed this and considered this, and in the future, all we would need is a zoning clearance to update the striping. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. I believe even in the conditions of approval, it has one that mentions that future consideration for RV parking would be through modification to this permit, which we could do through the zone clearance process.
So that's correct. We've already been considering that. I do appreciate all the commission's input. We recognize the need. We will work with the developer property owner, and this is going to be a good solution to help our RV storage scenarios.
Commissioner Vandermeulen.
Just one thought on that as we were looking at that, and I had it initially when I was looking at the plan. There are so many trees going down those rows, those 2 rows of parking. Could we do with less trees on there, like take every other one out?
Yes, that's what I said. We may have to adjust and or remove or relocate the diamond planters. The diamond planters are where trees would be located. So we will be able to look at that. And if shade is an issue, we have other opportunities to provide that if necessary to meet our building code requirements.
It seemed like so many trees that.
And I'll make a comment. One other thing that we do for shade is a lot of times we build a canopy system, and I don't know if Camarillo would be interested. It would, we could probably make it fit the look and feel that we're going for in the heritage zone. But sometimes for shade issues, we actually put up we poles and put up really nice canopies so that everyone's in the shade, park their RVs, which is probably the largest demand of RV owners because almost all RVs are parked outside.
So yes, we've been working on solar carports recently also.
Yeah.
Less shade, and they help with conservation measures. So that's something we could also work with modification at the director level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, this is Tanner Shelton, the consultant's land use applicant. I just want to reiterate, we're very open to working through after the approvals tonight, should your commission decide to approve this with planning staff, as they've indicated at the zoning clearance and or minor modification level, to make any adjustments as are needed for to accommodate RV storage. And we've began those conversations preliminarily with staff throughout the approval process.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Talmadge.
Yes, in looking at the landscape plans, you call out a fir tree in those diamond planters. I'm not sure that's necessarily the right tree to be putting in that location if we're going to consider for RV parking. So you may want to look at that as just in terms of your selection of a plant palette.
Duly noted. That is actually a conceptual plan. We will have a landscape architect that staff consults with analyze the landscaping plan, and we will consider that also. Thank you.
Right.
Further questions for the applicant?
Oh, no. I just had one more to staff.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead, Commissioner Vandermeulen? Go ahead.
Okay. When I was calling to check on the new parcel numbers and getting the new parcel numbers, I was told that there was a separate parcel number for the street continuation and that had been turned over to the city already. Is that correct? Has the city taken ownership of the extended street part of it?
Yes, it was dedicated as right-of-way, so it's not necessarily a separate parcel, but it is right-of-way to us. So the map created 4 parcels for development and the cul-de-sac. And the cul-de-sac is right-of-way. It's already been dedicated to the city on the map and accepted and recorded.
Okay, they did give me a parcel number for the street also. So somewhere on their maps, they came up with 5 parcel numbers.
Okay, and then just remember that the APN numbers are not always legal parcels. They have the little note on the APN map. I
haven't seen the map yet. It was still.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you have additional questions later on the map, I'd be happy to help you find the different pieces of information.
Yeah, I was just looking for the parcel number so I could find it on the assessor's information.
Okay. And you're right. And you're right, when it's right away to the city and fee, it should not have a parcel number. You're right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? And the only comment that I have, and I think this is for confirmation with staff, is that I think what we've heard tonight is there will be evolving needs for parking within this facility. You have to get the business going and see what you need in terms of RV storage and so forth. And what I believe I heard, Mr. Vaca, is that changes to that parking lot, a restriping plan or whatever, would only require a zone clearance. You wouldn't have to go back and get another modification to the IPD, would you?
No, that's correct. Unless there's an extremely significant departure, we can handle it at the staff level with the zoning clearance.
Seeing no further questions for staff or the applicant, I will ask that any attendees to this meeting come forward if there are any that would like to speak. And I'm looking at the attendees list and I see no hands up and none on the panelists. Can I have a confirmation from staff on that?
That is correct.
Thank you. Then I'll go ahead and close public testimony. And we have an architectural review committee report. Is that correct?
We do.
Commissioner Vandermeulen.
We looked at all the plans and looked at all the design, and we approved the architectural design based on the varied roof lines, the various colors used, the tile roofs, the many plants and trees around the property that soften the edges. And we feel it does meet the heritage zone look and design. And they also considered the views to the property from all different directions to make sure that work was done to make it pleasing from every direction. So all of that went into our decision to approve the design, the architectural design.
All right, thank you. That's great to hear. Let's go ahead and move into commissioner discussion recommendations on this application. Does anyone want to get the ball rolling on that? Commissioner Edsel?
Yeah, I think it's a very appropriate location for this kind of project. And as the applicant stated, and we know there's really a demand for this. And as far as storage places go, it's, you know, upgraded, pleasing to the eye. And like Beverly reported in the architectural review committee, they were sensitive to the design from all angles, and coming down the grade, they have the high wall that will hide, you know, if they're storing RV vehicles and stuff. And I think it'll be a good project for this area, and I support it.
Commissioner Vandermeulen. Any comments? Commissioner Espinosa, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think likewise, it seems like appropriate use for the land, and it seems I'm real comfortable with staff's assessment in terms of the proposed project from when the adopted environmental review mitigation negative declaration took place, and comparing it to what they're proposing here. I only had the question about the CEQA requirements, whether or not a new project would require any new or changes to the CEQA guidelines over that span of time, needed to be considered or part of the analysis in any way. And the consultant reaffirmed that they looked at each of the new requirements and discussed each of them to my satisfaction. So I really like the architecture and think that it's a very quality project and should be a good fit. So I support it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Vandermeulen, would you like to weigh in?
Sure. I actually feel much more comfortable with it after all the discussions that we had, and I got most of my questions answered, or my concerns, I should say. I would like to see it probably a little bit more climate controlled than what it sounds like it's going to be, but if there's 3 stories and the upper one has more of the climate control, it should help keep the lower one cooler also. So between the designs and the answers that we had in the discussions, I'm in favor of this going forward.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Talmadge.
Thank you. I like the project. I think it's well done. I think it's the right kind of project for that space. And I appreciate the attendance of Mr. Henry and Sheldon, and also having our environmental consultant, Mr. Brown, present to help with answering questions and give us a little more insight as to why they are doing what they're doing. And I appreciate the future concern about the RV storage so that we can, I think, do our best to try to accommodate that. Not everyone needs a box. Sometimes there's more to storing than just having a box to put things in. But anyway, I think the building design itself is very good, very compatible, and it may not have the same striking presence that the tents had when we had the Camellia show, but I think it's a nice entry. As you come down the grade and come around the curve, you'll see it, and I think it's a very pleasant project. I feel strong in supporting it.
All right, thank you. I too like the project. It seems less intense than the original IPD. The average daily traffic resulting will be 233 versus 429, if I read those numbers correctly in the staff report. The peak hour traffic will be down from 14 to 61. That's in the AM and similar to the PM. I think those numbers might help this commission with some of the concerns that we had on the Camino Ruiz project, the residential development that we just reviewed a couple months ago of the street. So having a less intense traffic development here is helpful in that way as well. Yeah, the 1/2 equilibrium, I'm not smart enough to understand how that was formulated, but I can see it in the streets, and I know that that's part of what the whole world has been going through over mostly the last year. But those RVs will need a home, and if we are indeed at 1/2 the equilibrium, we've got a ways to go, and it appears that this project could go some ways to meeting that need. So I certainly can support the project as well. And with that, I think we can call for a resolution.
Thank you, Chairman Murphy. Resolution number PC 2021-2, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo approving a request by Trojan Storage for a modification of a previously approved industrial plan development permit located at the northeast corner of Camino Ruiz and Camino Carrillo in the limited manufacturing LM zone, further described and set forth as IPD 390M1.
I'll make a motion to waive further reading and vote for adoption.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Etzel, seconded by Commissioner Espinosa. Let's go ahead and vote at this time. Commissioner Espinosa?
Yes.
Commissioner Etzel?
Yes.
Commissioner Vandermeulen?
Who's?
Commissioner Vandermeulen, are you voting to?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a yes. I couldn't hear the last statement.
Okay, sorry. Vice Chair Talmadge?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. The motion carries 5-0. Congratulations to the applicant. All right, everyone good to move on to the next one? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Item 8 of this public hearing is CUP 407, the Mark Camarillo LLC. Could we have a staff report on this, please?
Thank you, Chair Murphy and members of the Planning Commission. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Paul McLaren. I started with the city in November as an associate planner, so I hope to be being before you quite often for other projects. And with that, I would like to move on to the presentation. Okay, the item before you is the Mark conditional use permit, which is a request from the Mark LLC for a tasting room for Topa Topa Brewing Company and authorization for other restaurant tenants to sell packaged alcohol for consumption off-site. The 6,000 square foot commercial portion of the existing mixed use building has frontage along Ventura Road between Cedar Drive and Oak Street at 2024 Ventura Boulevard. The request is approval. The Mark LLC is requesting approval of a conditional use permit. The conditional use permit would allow Topa Topa Brewing Company to set up an approximately 540 square foot tasting room in the commercial area of the Mark. Additionally, the conditional use permit would allow Topa Topa current and future tenants with appropriate state alcohol licenses to sell packaged alcoholic beverages for consumption off-site with the Community Development Director's review and approval. The Camarillo Municipal Code states that the Planning Commission is the deciding body for this request. This is the existing site as seen from the north side of Ventura Boulevard where Cedar Drive enters Ventura Boulevard. What we see here is a temporary outdoor dining area that was approved for the COVID situation. Cafe Facile is open and operating in this location of the commercial area. And the area, so this would be included as part of the conditional use permit. And in this area down here, this commercial area is also being built out. And I'll get into exactly what's being built out in there in a little bit. Little quick background. The city acquired this property in 2010 and initiated an application for a conditional use permit for the approval of a mixed use development. Conditional use permit 330 was approved in 2013 for 4 ground floor commercial spaces and 22 residential units on the 2nd and 3rd floors. The city entered in an agreement for the sale of the property to Aldersgate Investment on August 24th of 2016. A modification to the conditional use permit was approved in 2016 to allow an additional residential unit, bring it to 23 residential units. The commercial space is divided into 2 areas, a smaller area currently occupied by Cafe Facile and a larger area that is laid out like a food court. This larger space is currently being built out as Frida's Wood-Fired Kitchen and Rory's Ice Cream, and Topa Topa's Tasting Room would become the 4th tenant in the space. Here's a site plan of the space. Again, here's the temporary outdoor dining that you saw in the photograph. Here is Cafe Facile. They do have outdoor dining along the sidewalk here. And then this is the area that is currently being built out. There is outdoor dining on a patio area here that's fenced off and enclosed from, separated from the public right-of-way. And then Topa Topa would be going into this hatched area here. Cafe Facile's floor plan has common restrooms for all of the commercial spaces here. Their kitchen area is here. And this is their counter area where the food service occurs. This red triangle represents a 16 square foot cooler where beer and wine are stored, and that's where they keep it until it's sold at the point of sale here. And then there is the indoor dining area here, and then there's the outdoor dining also along Ventura Boulevard. The area that's currently being built out, again, it's got Frida's Wood-Fired Kitchen is going in here. Rory's Ice Cream is going in here. Again, the patio seating is here and Topa Topa's tasting area is here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the annex at the collection in Oxnard, but that's an example of how this space would be used. The majority of the space is open seating for the food, like a food court area with options for eating, getting your ice cream. And then you would also have the option with Topa Topa's, if it was approved, to get a beer and do some tasting at the Topa Topa tasting area. The Topa Topa tasting area is 8.4% of the commercial area of the building. This area, for 8.4% of the commercial area that would be used for alcoholic sales, storage, and display. This combined with Cafe Facil's 0.3% area would make a total combined space of 8.7% of the commercial space being used for alcoholic beverage sales and display. There is a proposed condition that would limit the future tenants to be able, would limit the alcohol sales and display to 10% of the total commercial area. Existing ABC licenses within 300 feet. These include, of course, Cafe Facile, which is part of this permit. But then it also includes Bandits, 2088, Old Town Cafe, and Sushi Planet, which all currently serve alcohol for consumption on site as an ancillary operation of the restaurant, which is allowed by the city's municipal code. During this current COVID crisis, they have been temporarily allowed to sell packaged alcoholic beverages for consumption off-site with food purchases. Parking, this project does comply with the Camarillo Old Town parking requirements. There's also access to off of the alley to 26 tuck under parking spaces for the 23 residential units. Additional on-site parking is provided adjacent to the building off of the alley. A total of 40 parking spaces surrounded the building along Cedar Drive, Oak Street, and Ventura Boulevard. Included in those 40 on-street parking spaces are 10 parking spaces that were created when the property was developed by designing angled parking on Cedar Drive and Oak Street, and by closing up some existing driveway approaches that were no longer necessary. Additionally, there's parking lots within the Old Town District that are available for the commercial uses within the mark. The request is a use request in an existing building undergoing tenant improvements. Historically, the Class 1 exemption is the exemption used in Camarillo for alcohol conditional use permits in existing buildings. Due to this exemption, no additional review is necessary. There are some recommended special conditions that I'd like to highlight. Condition 33 would require that all new tenants with state alcohol business licenses be required to provide floor plans for review by the director, who would then ensure they're compliant with the city code and the conditions of this conditional use permit if approved tonight. As stated earlier, sales, shelving, storage, and display areas for the alcohol within this commercial area will be limited to 10% of the commercial floor area. And the conditional use permit would not allow a liquor store within the commercial area. So staff believes that the Mark LLC has met many of the goals of the general plan by designing and building a high quality development in Old Town Camarillo that preserves the historic character of the area, is pedestrian friendly with commercial spaces and outdoor seating areas facing Ventura Boulevard, and which contributes to the creation of an attractive and vibrant Old Town. The approval of this conditional use permit makes the property more attractive to potential tenants and will enable the property management to maintain their tenants and or attract new tenants when necessary. Furthermore, Topa Topa Brewing Company is a well-recognized and popular local business. This location will be their 4th location on the Central Coast and will draw business to the Camarillo Old Town. So staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit 407 subject to the conditions of approval, and recommends that the action of the Planning Commission is final unless appealed. An appeal is filed within 10 days of the date of this action. And with that, I conclude my staff report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McLaren. Very clear report, and welcome to the city, although you've been here 2 months, so you're a seasoned veteran by now, but thank you for the report. Do we have any questions, comments for staff on this application? Commissioner Espinosa.
Thank you. Yes, for staff, I'd like to ask you, included in the staff report, a reference to the facility at the collection in Oxnard as far as the approach to using a single conditional use permit for multi-tenants. Is this going to be a precedent for City of Camarillo?
I can't speak to that. I think Joe would be better to speak to that.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to welcome Paul in front of the entire commission. He's been doing a great job so far, as reflected in his agenda report and presentation, where he did an excellent job this evening. So welcome aboard, Paul, and thank you very much for your good work.
Thank you.
So with that being said, we are looking at ways to try to streamline and improve the efficiency, where we approve a conditional use permit that can be utilized by the underlying property owner, in this case, Aldersgate Development. As things potentially may change in the future, they can still utilize the conditional use permit to make sure it's consistent with what this original intended approval is, assuming it gets approved. So yes, we're trying to be more business friendly. It's an approach to get to yes that's consistent with our economic development strategic plan. And we feel like this is going to be a really good fit with the existing French bakery restaurant. And then Frida's wood-fired pizza kitchen is going to be an excellent use, along with beer tasting and then ice cream for dessert. So we feel like there's very good synergy there. And we built this conditional use permit around the overall potential land uses there, allowing for potential for change in the future, subject to the adopted conditions of approval if this is approved. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I appreciate the effort to streamline, as you say. I was just wondering, it does impact if there's one tenant that has issues and violates conditions of the permit, it would impact the other tenants as well, right? Unless you had them isolate.
We can actually address that with code compliance. And if it becomes extremely egregious, we would work with the property owner and bring it back to the city planning commission for rescission. It's very rare that that occurs because there's also several layers of bureaucracy, including alcohol beverage control that they must comply with. And then of course there's penal code. So we don't anticipate there being problems, but yes, if there were problems that were to occur, we have tools to address that.
Okay. Also, I had a question about the 8.7% you said of the area between the two tenants, the Cafe Facelli and the Topa Topa. Now, it seems in the Cafe Facelli you had just the actual cooler as the floor area. In the tasting room, it was sort of like a 500 square foot area there. Is there sort of a different process there for measuring the floor area use?
So we've done that in the past, and if it was like a convenience store, for instance, we look at the actual coolers, and then we measure area in the actual open floor plan that would be dedicated to display and or sales of alcohol beverages. So we're pretty consistent there that we utilize the entire bar for the Topa Topa tasting area. However, we do understand that all of the seating that's shared could have people sitting there with a alcoholic beverage and their food, and that's not typically counted. It's just more area dedicated to sales and display.
And in addition, the 540 square feet for Topa Topa, the 8.4%, is actually designed, the way it's designed is it looks much more like a tasting area. So there's an actual bar with seating at the bar, and then of course, there are just going to be kegs and taps built into the bar as well, and a server behind that bar area as well. So that's why it takes up quite a bit more square footage, is because it's specifically dedicated and designed more like an actual bar or tasting area.
And then just one other final comment on that is that we do recognize that overall this is anticipated to be ultimately a shared restaurant space with alcohol service, alcohol beverages. And so we want to make sure that it's mostly restaurant, that it's not 50% dedicated to a bar. So that's why we started with a 10% condition. In the future, if that's limiting the potential success for the business and we need to go to 15%, we could bring that back to the commission if we needed to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff on this one? Commissioner Vandermeulen, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. In reading it, it does mention that the amount of licenses in the Old Town area exceed the recommendation. Will this in any way prevent other areas from getting additional licenses?
So long as the commission and the city can make the findings for the public convenience and necessity finding, then it won't limit them. So that is the requirement at this level when you have already exceeded it, is that the deciding body be able to find this condition that there's a public necessity and convenience. In this case, the public necessity and convenience is really about the convenience of, you're already at a restaurant. Topa Topa's business model is they actually do sell, beer, canned beer, growlers, things like that, where people may come there, get some pizza, have a beer, say, wow, this beer is really good, I'd like to take some home. And rather than have to go to a different liquor store along the way, they can actually just purchase it here and take it home because it's a packaged alcoholic beverage.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for staff? Vice Chair Talmadge, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to be clear. The conditional use permit is for the sale of alcoholic beverages. Is it also addressing the tenant improvement that we're talking about? Is it really two things, or is it only related to the sale of alcohol?
It is only related to the establishment of the tasting room for Topa Topa and the ability for off sales, because like Bandits and 2088, restaurant uses per the city code actually already allow people to do sales, off sales. So this is really just addressing the ability for them to be able to do that and for Topa Topa to have a tasting room.
I see. So it's not really, we're not really looking at the tenant improvement per se. It's what they can do within that building.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. I was confused a little bit in reading the staff report, and then you just said this off sale of alcoholic beverages. I thought it was a typo when I read the report because I was thinking it meant off-site consumption of packaged alcoholic beverages. And is this a new term, this off sale? Does that mean you take it away and drink it someplace else?
It's a term from alcohol beverage control. That means that they purchase it and it's for sale that they take off the premises. It's an ABC technical term, but it is basically for off-site consumption.
So that's where it comes from. It's not a typo.
No,
I just thought it meant off-site. Okay. All right. All right. I get it.
Yeah, and that's why we were very specific in making sure that we went through the report, and I've tried to make it clear that this is also that they must be packaged beverages. So, they are allowed to sell, but it must be packaged. It's going to be wrapped up in a brown paper bag and taken off site.
Oh, my kind of place. Yeah, right. Anyway, a question on the parking. As is the existing situation, there's a number of the parking spaces on Ventura Boulevard that have been taken up by the temporary outside eating area. When you did your parking count, did it include those as open parking, or did it not include those?
The parking was previously established with the overall conditional use permit for the mixed use building.
Right.
But with the COVID pandemic, we do have the ability to relax our parking standards to allow the outdoor areas to utilize parking space. And that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying at all that we should get rid of that temporary and get back to, we got to have 40 or we got to have some other number. Right. No, I think having that that outdoor eating area under the COVID situation is great. And I think it's a wonderful move by the city that they've done that in many, many places. So I fully support that. I just wanted to be clear that, okay, these spaces they're still in the count, but we're not using them.
They are still in the count. We're not using them. It wouldn't be really necessary to use them right now since there's not a whole lot of dining in. So, but as soon as the restrictions are released, then at that point, you know, the parking is going to be freed up, and then that parking will all become available for the use.
Right, and my apologies. I meant to say at the beginning, Mr. McLaren, that welcome aboard. Glad you're here. And thank you for a fine report. And we look forward to more dealings in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any further questions for staff? Seeing none, I have a couple that are related to my not being a part of the original mixed use development, and they have to do with the residences upstairs, the 23 units. Are those residences individually owned?
No, they're not. They're leased. It's a partner.
Yeah. Are they leased by the owners of the Mart development downstairs, or are they different?
Aldersgate is the owner of the units, the residential apartment units, and the commercial space.
Okay. And when the public notices went out for this, they went to the overall title holder for those 23 units. Is that correct?
I believe we did also. Do we also send notices to the occupants, Paul? Do you know?
Yes, we also would have sent them to the occupants.
Excellent.
And we did a sign also, didn't we?
Yes, and there were signs posted at multiple locations on the building facade.
And then we also advertised in the newspaper.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's great. Sounds like you covered the basis. I appreciate that. Having no further questions for staff, we'll go ahead and open the public testimony on this. Do we have a representative of or applicant representative here to either talk about it or be available for questions from the commissioners?
Jordan, can you hear us and can you make yourself available?
Yes. Good evening, Chairman Murphy and members of the council. Just thank you. We're just pleased to be before you guys this evening, and we're very excited to be able to get the Mark open. My name is Jordan Marshall. I'm the project manager of the overall building during the construction phase of the 23 apartments, and now during the commercial build out. And I represent the owner of Aldersgate. Yeah, so we're very excited. We've worked very hard and worked closely with staff to put together just a restaurant and brewery and ice cream and Cafe Vassell. We've handpicked a lot. We went to them directly, handpicked them, wanting to just bring just a vibrant asset to the downtown area, caring about Camarillo. And so it's been a long road, but we're very excited to get it opened. COVID, restrictions have made it difficult, but we're very close now, and we hope to have health department sign off very soon. So yeah, thank you for hearing us. I'm available for any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, and thank you for coming and making yourself available. Do we have any questions for the applicant this evening? None? Okay. I'm curious about the estimated timing on occupancy for the 3 tenants. Do you have any information? I know this is a difficult time to make an estimate but
right.
Anything?
Yeah, so we're probably looking at next week for our health department for the pizza kitchen and the ice cream facility, and probably sign off all next week. It really depends on the COVID restrictions. We hope to get the pizza kitchen open for phone orders and just to-go orders as soon as possible in the next couple of weeks.
All right, thank you, Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, do we have anyone from any attendees this evening that would like to speak on this application? Checking the attendee list, I see no one with their hands up. None of the panelists. Can I have a confirmation that we have no one, no other attendees interested in participating tonight?
That's correct. There's no request for public testimony.
Let's see, no architectural review on this. So I'll go ahead and close public testimony, and we can go right into commissioner discussions and recommendations. Anyone like to start on that? Commissioner Etzel?
Before we actually start, it looks like we do have one hand raised from Topa Topa.
Oh, yes, we do. All right. Please proceed, Topa Topa.
Yeah, I just, this is Jack Dyer, the founder of Topa Topa. I just wanted to extend our thank you to Camarillo for working with us on this project. We've been super excited to work with Aldersgate on this since they invited us into it, and we hope to be a good steward of the Old Town Historic District there in Camarillo. You know, there's always a lot of misconception around a tasting room, and I just want to put our good faith in you guys and in approving us that, you know, we're different than a bar. We're a little bit more like a family place for people to come and hang out and gather. And we think this collaboration of a coffee shop, a pizza place, and ice cream, and some good, you know, fresh local beers is a great thing for downtown Camarillo. So we appreciate the support, and we look forward to being part of Camarillo for the long term. So we couldn't be more happy. I just want to make sure you guys knew we as Topa Topa are fully supportive of this project and excited to get started when we're allowed to, given the current restrictions. So thank you guys, and just wanted to extend my thank you to everyone, and thank you to staff for preparing a great report tonight. We appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack, and thanks for your interest in doing business in this city. I don't see any other hands up again from the attendees, so I think I can now close the public testimony on this application, and we can move into commissioner discussion and recommendations on this application.
Just very briefly, I just want to thank the applicant and the representative of the owner Matt Mancy, and Jordan Marshall representing him. I want to thank them very much for their cooperation, and we're very excited about Topa Topa. I know they're going to do a great job in Camarillo, and then the wood-fired pizza, we've already sampled that. It's delicious, and this is going to be a great opportunity for people to go out and dine in Old Town, new business and a new set of restaurants.
Yeah. Great.
All right. Thank you for that input. Commissioner Etzel.
Yeah, first I wanted to welcome Paul to the city and thank you for a nice presentation, and really compliment the city on, I think, the business-friendly flexibility, working with them to come up with this kind of unique concept that I think will be a real draw to Old Town, and compliment what's there and bring more people to the area. And I think it seems like the city really participated in facilitating this with the applicants. Hopefully they feel that way as well. And I didn't realize it was so far along under construction. So that's exciting. We're going to have it soon, and hopefully restrictions get lifted soon. And can't wait to try that pizza and some beer over there, and then a little ice cream afterwards. So I'm in favor of it.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Espinosa.
Yeah, I too want to welcome Paul. Thank you very much for your report, Paul, and welcome to the city. Well, I think, you know, kind of exciting in the sense that breaking new ground here by bundling multiple tenants into a single CUP in this approach. And I was just wanted to, you know, make sure that, you know, in that process that the other tenants wouldn't be in any danger or impacted in any weigh negatively should any issues arise. But it sounds like they have a way of addressing that, and it's a very diverse mix of businesses there, and looking forward to, like Dave said, enjoying a croissant and an ice cream and a piece of pizza and a beer. So excited to see the success of the businesses there.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Vandermeulen.
Thank you. And also, it's nice to meet Paul working with us and see a new face and all the work that he put into this. And I do like the idea that we've been able to make something more user-friendly that'll, you know, work broadly for an area instead of just each individual business. I am looking forward to the pizza place also. And although the idea of ice cream and a croissant both sounded good too. So I'm looking forward to trying this when it gets open. I'm glad it's going to be opening sooner rather than later, at least for takeout. And I think it's going to be a great addition when we get all the businesses up and running in there. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Talmadge.
Yes, thank you all for your participation, especially the developer and the applicant, Mr. Well, I can't say Mr. Topa Topa, but the representative from Topa Topa company. I did go look at the site, and I brought my wife along, and we did partake of ice cream after our little tour and walk around the building. So it was very good. And you're right, the pizza sounds good. I think this is an excellent project. When we start looking at how do we do things effectively in a small downtown area, we need to start mixing uses, and that's exactly what this project started as, is a mixed use development of commercial space on the ground floor and then residential units above. And but it's always unclear what's the commercial space going to be. And this, I think, is a very nice definition of a restaurant, a couple of different kinds of things, but affords people an opportunity for a little bit more variety that if they want to go for an ice cream, they can do that. They want a pizza, they can do that. If they want to buy some beer, they could do that. If they want pastries, they could do that. And that's the kind of thing I think is, it should be really encouraged in further developments. So I feel very strong about supporting this project, and I thank the applicant for their work on this and for the city staff in looking at it. And I think coming forward with a very good blended project of necessary needs. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, when the product is ice cream, beer, pizza, and croissants, it's very difficult for me to look at this application objectively. I love all of those things. The thing that I sometimes struggle with is the ABC licensing, because often we're in a situation where we have more licenses than the ABC would recommend. So it comes down to the public convenience and necessity. And I struggle with that a little bit simply because I'm an engineer and there's no numbers to really attach to public convenience and necessity. I've looked at it and I've kind of reviewed it, and it seems to come down to, is this something that the community would appreciate and be able to enjoy? And looking at other similar food courts in Oxnard and in a number of different areas, the answer is yes, they're popular, they're fun to go to, and they improve the quality of life in our community. So yes, on that, and I do like the flexibility for future. Hopefully, all businesses will be able to stay in the food court and be successful. But in in the event any of them cannot, I'd like the ability of another business to be able to jump in without having too much red tape to get through to join the court and keep it vital. So I can support the project. Okay, I think that we can, at this point, call for a resolution.
Thank you very much, Chairman Murphy. Conditional use permit 407. Resolution number PC 2021-3. A resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Camarillo, California, approving a request by Jordan Marshall, the Mark LLC, for a conditional use permit to allow tasting rooms as a permitted use with this CUP and allow ground floor tenants operating within the 6,000 square foot commercial area of the Mark mixed use development to sell alcoholic beverages for consumption off the premises where alcoholic beverages are also offered for consumption on site, located at 2024 Ventura Boulevard in the Camarillo Old Town Zone, further described as CUP 407.
I'll make the motion to waive further reading and vote for adoption.
I'll second that.
Moved by Commissioner Edsel, seconded by Commissioner Vandermeulen. Let's go ahead and vote. Commissioner Vandermeulen? Commissioner Vandermeulen?
Yes.
Commissioner Edsel?
Yes.
Commissioner Espinosa?
Yes.
Vice Chair Talmadge?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. It carries 5-0. Congratulations to the applicant, and thank you again, staff, for all your hard work in this. All right, that brings us to item 9 for this evening, which is the reorganization of the Planning Commission. This is where we select a chair and vice chair for the coming year for the Planning Commission, and also a selection of committee members for our architectural review and ordinance committees. And for this, I'll turn it over to staff to conduct this business.
Thank you very much, Chairman Murphy. We're going to have Monique help facilitate the reorganization with the Planning Commission. So Monique, can you please take it away?
Got it. Good evening, commissioners. We will now go through the process of the restructure of the Planning Commission, which includes selecting a new chair, a vice chair, the Architectural Committee, and finally, the Ordinance Committee. To provide you with a brief update on the process, we'll open nominations for the offices of the Planning Commission in order as they were previously just mentioned. If there are multiple nominations, we will vote on the nominations in the order that they were received. If there is only one nomination, a motion to close the nominations would then call for election on the floor. We'd also like to highlight that if someone is nominated and they personally decide that they do not wish to accept the office that they are nominated for, they may speak up to express that they wish to decline to accept the nominations. Are there any questions?
No.
Okay. We'll now proceed with the office of chair. Are there any nominations for the office of chair?
I nominate Vice Chair Gene Talmadge to be chair.
Are there any other nominations? Okay.
And I'll move to close the nominations then.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Perfect. Okay. All right, so now we will vote and we'll now vote on the nomination of Gene Talmadge for the office of chair. Chair Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Talmadge?
Yes.
Commissioner Edsel?
Yes.
Commissioner Espinosa?
Yes.
And Commissioner Vandermeulen?
Yes.
Great, that motion carries unanimously for Gene Talmadge as the new chair. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the nomination and thank you for the election. I look forward to continue working with you all. We have a great team and let's continue on and hope that 2021 is a little bit different than the last year. We have a lot of projects that we're going to be looking at this year. So we roll up our sleeves and we take charge and move out. So thank you very much.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll now proceed with the office of Vice Chair. Are there any nominations for the office of Vice Chair?
I'll nominate Luis.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing none.
I'll second it.
Okay. Perfect.
And then
all right.
We need a motion to close the nomination.
Correct. Do we have a motion to close?
Also move.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Since there are hearing no other nominations, we'll now vote on the nomination of Commissioner Espinoza for the office of Vice Chair. Chair Murphy?
Yes.
Vice Chair Talmadge?
Yes.
Commissioner Edsel?
Yes.
Commissioner Espinoza?
Yes.
And Commissioner Vandermeulen?
Yes.
Great, that motion carries unanimously. And congratulations to our new Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. I look forward to serving in that capacity. Thank you for the confidence, and I appreciate it. I'm very grateful to be part of this great team.
Perfect.
We will get to see each other in person this year sometime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Too long.
And we'll now move to the nominations for the Architectural Review Committee. We will need 2 members to serve on the committee. There is no chair or vice chair, but rather only 2 committee members. Are there any nominations for the Architectural Review Committee?
I'll nominate, I'll nominate Luis Espinoza.
And I'll nominate Tom Murphy as the other one.
Okay, do we have any other nominations? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to close?
So move.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Now we will move for the we will now vote on the nominations of Luis Espinoza and Tom Murphy for the Office of Architectural Review Committee. Chair Murphy.
I think you said yes.
Yes. Is that a yes?
That's
okay.
a yes.
Perfect. Vice Chair Talmadge?
Yes.
Commissioner Edsel?
Yes.
Commissioner Espinoza?
Yes.
And Commissioner Vandermeulen?
Yes.
Great, that motion carries unanimously. Okay, finally, we'll now move for nominations for the Ordinance Review Committee. We also need 2 members to serve on this committee. There is no chair or vice chair, but rather only 2 committee members. Are there any nominations for the Ordinance Review Committee?
I nominate Commissioner Edsel.
And I nominate Commissioner Vandermeulen for the other spot.
Okay, we have Commissioner David Edsel nominated and Beverly Vandermeulen nominated. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, do we have a motion to close?
I'll move to close.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Vice Chair Jean Talmadge and seconded by Luis Espinoza. Okay, we will now move for a vote for nominations for the Officers of Ordinance Review Committee. Chair Murphy.
Yes.
Vice Chair Talmadge.
Yes.
Commissioner Edsel.
Yes.
Commissioner Espinoza.
Yes.
And Commissioner Vandermeulen.
Yes.
Great, that motion carries unanimously. That concludes the reorganization, and thank you all very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item number 10.
Okay.
I believe.
Thank you very much, Monique, for collaborating in the reorganization, and congratulations to all of the planning commissioners on their new assignments and roles. And I know everyone's very qualified to step right in and do a great job. And I really appreciate everyone's cooperation and collaboration, not only working with staff, but respectfully working with each other. It's very important that we continue that trend. It reflects very well on our community, and it makes me proud to be a part of such a great team. So thank you very much, commissioners. You're doing a great job, and I know that that'll continue in this next year. So I want to take an opportunity here now to recognize Mr. Tom Murphy for such an excellent job as chairman this past year. Monique, could you please share the screen with the plaque?
All right.
Excellent. Okay, so we would like to offer this plaque and gavel to Mr. Tom Murphy to thank you very much for this past year as chairman. A round of applause.
Yay.
Job well done.
Mr. Murphy, you've done an excellent job leading us through each planning commission meeting this past year, especially with such difficult circumstances. Helping us all adjust to these new procedures using Zoom while we've addressed these remote meetings during the current pandemic. I want you to know that we all truly appreciate your commitments, Mr. Murphy. We appreciate your support and everything that you've done to provide us encouragement and continue the great teamwork through all these changes. I do know it hasn't been easy and the transition's been challenging, but you've done an excellent job adapting to everything. I know I speak on behalf of all our staff when I say that you've always been a pleasure to work with. You've always been very supportive of our staff, and it means a great deal to us to know that we've had you leading us this past year in such a strong way. It's deeply rooted in a sense of charity. We understand that you definitely work towards giving back to the community, and it's been reflected in all the efforts that you've demonstrated personally this past year. Mr. Murphy, sincerely, we really appreciate you as a person and planning commissioner, and you do a great job working for the city of Camarillo through all your dedication. So sincerely, I want you to know I'm extremely grateful, as are all of our staff members. So thank you very much.
Well,
great job, Tom, this year.
Thank you for those very nice and kind words. Thank you for the plaque. It's really beautiful, and it strikes me as a little funny that I'm receiving such a nice award for doing something that has been so enjoyable to me in the first place. It is a true pleasure to serve on this commission. I love the diversity of the perspectives that are expressed by this board at each and every one of our meetings. The city's objective in establishing a commission panel that represents a broad cross-section of Camarillo seems so well met with this commission. So I want to thank the city council, city staff, and my fellow commissioners for making all of this happen and allowing me to be a part of it. It is a true joy to be working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. And I also want to provide an opportunity for any other commissioners if they'd like to share some comments with our past Chairman Murphy.
I want to mention, it's just been a pleasure to work with Tom. And although we won't get a chance this coming year, at least not as of now, to join together at any of these educational conferences, it was a real blessing to have that in the past, because, you know, we got a chance to interact with each other on a more personal basis and got to know what a stellar individual Tom is, and really have been a pleasure working with him, and look forward to the coming year as well. So thanks for everything you've done for us this past year, Tom, in really difficult circumstances.
All right, thank you, Luis.
Yeah, I want to echo that, Tom. I thought you were a great chairman this year. patient, organized, really adapted to this Zoom thing right away and made the meetings run really smooth. And, I've known you for a long time, so already knew that you were a good guy. And even though we can't go to those conferences, I think we can all go down now to Topa Topa. But I guess we can't do more than 2 at a time without getting a problem with the Brown Act. Thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you, Dave.
I'd like to just say thank you. And Tom, when you took this position, little did you know what was going to be coming your way. And you just kind of rolled right into it along the way, and you made it look easy to run these Zoom meetings and participate in them. And I just really enjoyed your leadership there and learning along the way, as well as with the whole commission. So congratulations. It was a great year from you, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. That's really nice.
I guess I'll go last. Tom, I really appreciated working with you. You set a great example for all of us to follow. I think Luis mentioned, your preparation and the social aspect of us having the ability to get together and know each other at some place other than a formal setting of the conference chamber or the city council chamber. But the informal chance we had to share a meal, share a story, and learn a little bit more about each other. And Tom, you were always so easy to get to know. We've sort of known each other for a number of years. Of course, our wives have known each other, quote, forever, unquote. And but anyway, it's been a real pleasure to work with you, and certainly look forward to your continued presence and your wisdom and knowledge. And I think just this quiet competence that you show in looking at each and every project and giving a good objective view at it. So thank you so much for what you've done and what you'll continue to do. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate, again, working with all of you, and I look forward to a great coming year.
You think you'll get a real plaque, Tom, or just a photograph of one?
It's a real one. It's a real one. Did I show you?
You did receive the real one.
There it is.
Oh, you did. Oh, good.
Looking good. Okay.
Much appreciated.
Once again, thank you very much. We appreciate all of your help leading the meetings and leading the commission, Mr. Murphy. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, too.
So, director's report, I would like to continue, and I want to thank Mr. Novi on an excellent presentation tonight and a good job working with Trojan Storage to iron out some pretty significant wrinkles along the way the past several months. So we're always working in a business-friendly environment with a sense of get to yes. And so we've done a really good job collaborating with Trojan Storage. And so thanks to Mr. Novi's hard work and the support from Public Works Department, we really appreciate that. I also want to again welcome Mr. Paul McLaren in front of the commission. He's an excellent planner. He's formerly with the city of Oxnard, and he's been doing a great job, hit the ground running with us. And we're very, very pleased to have such a talented planner on our team. And we know he's going to continue to do a great job. So as reflected in his agenda report and presentation tonight, we've got a real winner there when we hired Mr. McLaren. And Paul, I know you're still on Zoom. We just want to thank you for your hard work and welcome you aboard in front of the Planning Commission. So thank you. And then last but not least, I want to recognize the fact that the commission has updated the meeting times moving forward starting in February, with the meeting starting at 6:30, which I think is more than appropriate in an effort to try to make the meetings more accessible to the public. As you see here, we're still winding down and it's almost 9:40 in the evening. With the two prior agenda items, it does start to get late into the evening, and I know it makes it difficult for some people to participate and provide public input when it gets to 8:30 or 9. So we're hopeful that with an earlier start time, we could achieve greater outreach to the public and potentially receive more public input. So I think it'd be better for the city and for all of our residents, business owners, and constituents to have a greater opportunity to speak to the commission in the future. So I recognize that everyone was supportive of that unanimously, and I think it's great, and I really appreciate everyone's support with that. And then last but certainly not least, I want to congratulate our new Vice Chairman, Luis Espinosa, congratulations. And then of course, our new Chairman, Gene Talmadge, congratulations. I know we're in good hands with both of you. And the committee assignments were also well done. And once again, you guys do a great job, and we just sincerely appreciate all that you do, and we're grateful. So yes, that concludes my presentation. We do anticipate a meeting on February 2nd. So please keep that open for a planning commission meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. And that's 6:30 a.m., right? We're doing?
No. We're going to get out early.
Before work.
Yeah, no, we're going to do it in the evening so the public has an opportunity to participate.
Great, thank you.
Good clarification.
Well, I have an easy answer to that. It's 18:30.
Yeah.
So that concludes the director's report. Now, if there's any commission comments, would be the next item on the agenda, and then we can move to adjourn.
I think the only comment I want to make is I saw a really nice memorial today at the National Mall, and really just gave pause and feel like we all should sort of like take a second to reflect on, you know, all the lives lost due to COVID. It's a very difficult thing for us to, you know, let that reality sink in, but for all those families impacted, and I hope you all stay safe and continue to do so.
Well said. Thanks, Luis.
Yeah, well, yeah, I echo that. Thank you, Luis. All right, so who closes this meeting?
I think that's the new guy, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it is.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
A second?
I'll second it.
Second.
I'll third it. I'll third it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? No? Hearing none? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Right. See you in a couple of weeks.